to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey, Mindset.
What's up, man?
I was just thinking.
Oh, that's what I smell burning.
Ha ha. I don't think you ever fully answered the question about who started funk.
Oh, no, we did a lot on that. Remember we
Okay,
did...
I get that. But I mean, where did the word come from? Because I thought funky meant stinky or something.
Oh, where it came from? Okay, come on. You know, honestly, the word goes back, man, way, way back. I mean, Africa, Germany, a lot of places use the word funk. But guys, before I get in there, I want to shout out the members on this channel and the subscribers, and a special thanks to a guy who supports the channel, Eric Imperial. Just want to let him know he's much appreciated. But anyway, because I know a lot of you guys like funk, I want to clear this thing up about where the word came from, really. I mean, it's kind of all over the place, but we're going to try to centralize it into what is fact versus what people are talking about. We're not talking about the genre of funk. Where did the word come from that got us to the genre of funk? So y'all hang around to the end, and you're going to find out something that surprises most of you. Now, that right there is simple, and basically just one foundation of what we call funk, and he should know better than anyone else. Let me say something that might sound crazy at first. The reason musicians started calling a groove funky, especially inside professional recording studios, can be traced back to one drummer in New Orleans in the 1950s. And no, I am not saying he invented the word funk. The word funk existed long before records were spinning. It was in black vernacular going back to the early 20th century, even way earlier in some forms throughout history, referring to body odor, something raw, something visceral. By the 1940s and early 50s, jazz musicians were already using funky to describe a bluesy, gut-level feel. But here is what most people do not know. Earl Palmer is widely credited, including in his own documented interviews and by multiple music historians, as one of the first musicians to deliberately apply the word funky to describe a drum groove inside a recording session, helping shift it from slang into musical vocabulary at the birth of rock and roll. And here's the jaw drop. When Earl told musicians to play it funky, he didn't mean make it earthy or give it attitude in some abstract sense. He said, literally, think about Drag Nasty Foley, a local man in Treme who smells so bad you could smell him from blocks away. And here's what that does. If you're a musician thinking about someone that stinks, what do? You twist your face, you scrunch your nose, your body reacts. And in the studio, that reaction translates directly into how you play the groove and set the pocket. Your instinct, your face, your body drives the groove. That is exactly what Earl meant. Make music that makes your body respond, that forces you to drop your guard, that makes the listener react in kind. That involuntary, visceral reaction is what we call funky. Now that is different. And if that is true, that means every time you say that beat is funky, you are echoing language shaped in a hot little studio in New Orleans, guided by one man's genius instruction. So, who was Earl Palmer? Well, Earl Cyril Palmer was born October 25th, 1924 in Treme, New Orleans, the oldest black neighborhood in America. This was not just a neighborhood. This was rhythm culture before America even knew what to call it. Brass bands in the streets, second lines, blues on the corners, gospel in the churches. Before Earl ever touched drumsticks, he was a tap dancer on Bourbon Street at 5 years old.
Coming up as a kid tap dancing, in the French Quarter for tips, and I always had interest with playing the drums because as kids we used to make our own drums from any kind of box. Was good for what we'd call a snare drum now. Just something rhythmical, some drum sound so the guys could dance by it, get those tips.
5? That means before he understood theory, he understood timing. Tap is percussion, tap is syncopation, tap is learning how to make an audience move without saying a word. Then World War II interrupted life, and Earl served in the United States Army. When he came back, he did something serious musicians do. He used his GI Bill to study music formally at the Grunewald School of Music in New Orleans. He learned theory, structure, arrangement. This was not just street rhythm, y'all. This was educated rhythm. By the late 1940s, he became the first call drummer for bandleader Dave Bartholomew, who worked closely with Fats Domino. That made Earl one of the central rhythm forces in New Orleans R&B before rock and roll had a name. Now here comes the turning point. September 1955. Cosimo Matas's J&M studio in New Orleans. Little Richard is in the room recording a song that will become a huge hit for him, and he's got Earl Palmer on the drums. Now, most drummers at that time played a shuffle feel, triplet bass, swinging, but Earl heard the way Little Richard was attacking the piano, straight, aggressive, driving, so he locked into straight quarter notes on the ride cymbal and 2 and 4 on the snare. Tutti Frutti, that right there is one of the foundational rock and roll backbeats ever recorded. Music historians regularly credit Earl Palmer's playing on that session as a defining rhythmic shift from swing to rock. Now here is where the word funk, or funky, enters the room. In multiple interviews, including statements cited by historians and in his autobiography, Backbeat Earl Palmer's Story, Earl explained that during New Orleans sessions, he would tell musicians to play the groove funky. He tied it to that dude Drag Nasty Foley. And the genius of it, that instruction triggered the exact facial and bodily response Foley's stench would trigger. The scrunch, the twist, the instinctive reaction. That is what he wanted the music to do. Force instinct, force the body, force the groove into something you could not fake. Now, according to Merriam-Webster, the word funk historically referred to a strong smell, especially body odor. But by the mid-60s, it had evolved in American slang to mean a description for the music that drew out the stank face in people. A groove you couldn't keep a straight face when listening to it. Artists like the Meters, James Brown, Dyke Christian, Charles Wright, and a whole lot of others were starting to create what would later be known as funk as we went into the 70s. But this cat Earl Palmer is credited in the record for basically being the first to use the word funk or funky pertaining to music. That's big, but even bigger is that he is considered one of the most recorded drummers in history. Chances are you've been listening to Earl Palmer your whole life and didn't even know it. Besides playing drums on Tutti Frutti, he played on all of these, starting with this big one. Oh yeah, dude, Earl was the person playing drums on the theme to that Flintstones cartoon. Then you got You Send Me by Sam Cooke, You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling by the Righteous Brothers, River Deep Mountain High by Ike and Tina Turner, the theme songs from Mission Impossible, the show Mannix, the Brady Bunch, and literally countless other records. Go look them up and be amazed. He was a first-call studio musician for decades, racking up more sessions than anyone on the Skins. So, we are clear, Earl Palmer did not invent the word funk. He did not create the later genre known as funk music. But documentation shows he was among the first recorded studio musicians to consciously apply the word funky to describe a rhythm feel during the 1950s rock and R&B sessions, helping move the word from street slang into studio language. And, critically, he tied it to a physical, involuntary reaction, making musicians embody the groove rather than think about it. That matters, because language shapes culture. And without Earl's word contribution, funk music might have a different name and be known as a totally different genre. Besides music, Palmer married 3 times and had 7 children. In music, he did everything. The Musicians Union tracked Palmer playing on 450 dates in 1967 alone. And in the year 2000, Palmer became one of the first session musicians to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He remained in demand as a drummer throughout the 70s and 80s, playing on recordings for many major artists. But unfortunately, the beat could not go on forever. Earl Cyril Palmer died in September 2008 in Banning, California, after a long illness. He was 83 years old. But his legacy is great, and much bigger than a lot of people even know. This man was quiet and low-key, but his accomplishments speak loudly into the ears of those willing to listen to the facts. So yeah, that's pretty much the facts, guys. That's how it goes. I know a lot of people have their own opinion about this and that, and some of y'all are going to go looking for something to counteract that. But the fact is that it started with what Earl Palmer did back in the day when he coined the phrase funky, talking about the way things should be played in the studio. And I hope you learned something and appreciate that on the Music Mindset channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.